Hey, how's it going? Today, I'm talking to Amanda, and you are going to hear firsthand how she went from running a 4-hour half marathon at Halloween Half Marathon Weekend 2024 to running a 3-hour and 15-minute half marathon at Halloween Weekend 2025.
This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone Run Disney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line.
Okay, so I have Amanda here with me. It is just after Halloween Half Marathon Weekend at Disneyland, and she has an amazing story to tell about her Run Disney career, which is lengthy, and this past weekend. So, hi, Amanda. Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to share with other like-minded runners.
Yes, this is awesome. Now, you have done Run Disney for a long time.
About 12 years, actually. So it would be 12 years in October. My first race would have been Tower of Terror way back when that was its own weekend, and it was the only race. Before challenges were starting to get big at that point, but so that was my first race. I'd be the first one to say I was scared out of my boots and didn't think I would finish, but I had done the training. And when I say I had done the training, I had followed what is out there to a T. So I had gone a 10-mile race. I had gone up to, I think, 12 miles.
Okay, 10 miler, going 12 miles, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Why did you do that race? Like, what got you started with Run Disney?
I wanted, way back when New Balance had the contract with Run Disney for their shoes, I wanted the Minnie Mouse shoes. And it was kind of a joke at my house that I had found them on eBay for like $300. And my husband said, no, if you want them, you need to run a race. And I said, but I don't run. And he's like, well, then you don't get them. And I'm like, okay, fine. And I don't normally ask my husband for things. So it was kind of a weird that I even said I was going to do this. And I was like, fine, I'll run. I was already in a weight loss journey. And so I was like, this just makes sense. I was working with a personal trainer and the fact that, so I was lifting weights and stuff like that. And I'm like, I can do this. And so I just set out to do it. And at that point, we didn't have to sign up 6 and 8 months in advance. And I know for a fact I signed up in May for an October race. And it was because at that time, there was a meter on the site and you literally watched it go down. And when it got to about 86% full is when I went, okay, I got to sign up now because I don't want to lose out. And I have fond memories of that race, but I have fond memories of many other Run Disney races. I can remember my first Disneyland race, which would have been in 2016, so 3 years later. And it just, after a while, it just became who I was, and what I did was to run the races. I think my husband now thinks it would have been cheaper just to let me buy the shoes.
Little did he know what he was getting you and him into.
Yeah, because it has become a family event now. It's not just me running. Now, not everybody in my family runs a half or a full marathon, but we do. I have two sons, and now I have a daughter-in-law also, and we all do run in a majority of them some way or shape. So it's kind of become just part of what the family does. I saw my son briefly today and he's like, oh, so tell me how to go, and it's just fun to be able to share.
That's awesome. So how many races have you done?
I don't even know that I could tell you for sure, but what I would say is I've done a minimum of 2 a year for probably the last 10 years, other than COVID.
Wow.
And during COVID, I did not do the virtuals because other than the summer virtuals, which I've done all of, because I'm just crazy like that. But I would say I've done at least 2 a year. I have 4 coast to coast now. So 4 times I've done both coast in a year. I'm to the point now I'm typically doing 3 or 4 in a year. Partially because, oh, we want to do this theme or we want to do that, or it just fits. And so that's part of the reason sometimes where I end up with more than just the 2.
Yeah, and I know you're doing multiple this Run Disney season. So this season, for those listening, we're in 2025 to 2026. We just did Halloween half marathon weekend at Disneyland. And then tell me what your other next ones are.
I will be doing Dopey. I will also then do the Dumbo Double Dare, in which I will also add on the 5K because why not? You're at Disneyland, you might as well. So that one's in Disneyland, and then I will come back and do Springtime Surprise, and I will do the challenge there also because I have to. First off, the 10 mile is a nice distance, and I have to do Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh. Absolutely. And so you'll be eligible for Coast to Coast again.
Yeah, technically I will be. We haven't actually heard 100% that it'll be there, but we'll see. I'm hopeful that even though there's only going to be one Disneyland race in 26, that they'll still let us do coast to coast.
That's a good point. You're right. I'm putting the cart before the horse. It's not official yet, but if it is, between the distances at Dopey being the half marathon and the full marathon that are eligible, then Disneyland with the half marathon being eligible, and then Springtime Surprise, the 10-miler, is also eligible should they decide that Coast to Coast is an activity next year. So
Yeah.
you'll get number 5.
Right, exactly. And it to me is just kind of fun. I've gotten to a point, I think, I like the characters on the race and things like that, but that's not I'm fine with running by and waving. Or sometimes I'll take a picture from a distance. I do stop from time to time, but I don't always have to stop for everything. Part of the reason I will do the 5K a lot of times is to get the pictures because it's untimed, and I typically am far enough to the front that I can get through and still get characters.
It's interesting that you say that because you and I both did Halloween half marathon weekend this weekend. I did all 3 races. I know you did 2 races, 5K and half. And we had a discussion that they closed all of the character lines by the time I got through. Now, is that typical or was that weird for this race?
It seemed weird to me, but I'm going to guess it was pure numbers, like how long the lines get and that we have to be done by this time, because I think Disneyland tends to count a little more. I think the other thing is at Disney World, we're not in the parks as long. And so I think come out of the park sooner. So we're not in the park near as much. And so I wonder if it's purely a number, like they got to get people through. They don't sweep like we think of as much in the 5K. They will, but not as much. And so I think sometimes I wonder, I've never talked to somebody who had the experience you had. So I don't know exactly, but I did hear others say that they ran into the same thing. And I'm going to guess it's just where you're at on the course. And they're like, we got to get you through because we got to be able to open the parks, because Disneyland 5K, you start and finish in a park. You start in Disneyland and you finish in California Adventure. So I think that's the only thing I could think of why they would have done that.
Yeah, because Disney World, you're starting in the Epcot parking lots, you're ending in the Epcot parking lots. And just like you said, I mean, it doesn't necessarily happen with the 5K, but in Disney World in Florida, you're on Disney campus the whole time. Even when you're out running on the roads, that's still Disney property. Whereas Disneyland, you're running through streets of Anaheim as well for the longer distances, and they can't have characters there. So if you're going to do characters, it has to be all on Disney property, which there just isn't as much of in California right now.
Right. Yeah, and that's like I said, that's the only thing I can think of why they would have done that in essence. Um, we've always said Disneyland has its own beast, in the fact that it is so different. I don't remember back in 2016, 17 when I did Disneyland. I don't remember the 5K well enough to be able to tell you, but I know we didn't start in the park. We started, that point we would have started in what is now downtown Disney, or their Disney Springs in essence. We started on a road.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it changes year to year. And well, now after 2026, after the end of January, beginning of February race at Disneyland, it's going on hiatus for a while. So who knows if it will come back and what it will look like when it does.
Yeah, and we all hope it comes back. I mean, we said the same thing when it went on hiatus the last time. Um, and it was a good long time that we were without Disneyland races, and I know everybody wanted them back. The one thing I will say about Disneyland races is the fact that I think they get a lot more locals. Um, I'm always amazed. I mean, I was next to somebody, I talked to a gentleman in the corral who was like, "Oh yeah, I've only ever done 2 races and they were both here at Disneyland." He's like, "Disney World's the same, isn't it?" And it's like, "Oh no, it's so different." And so I just think it's funny. And there are little things that, so we've now had 4 Disneyland races since they came back. I've done 3 out of the 4. Um the one thing I would say is each one has gotten better. They're not perfect comparatively, but they've gotten better. We had more entertainment this time than we had last year on the open road. And I think that's because people were like, "Wait a minute, we're missing that." And it does make a difference when you're out there by yourself, or even if you're out there with a group. I know I had problems with my headphones on Sunday, and having the entertainment helped me get from point to point somewhat, because I was able to go, "Oh, okay, yeah, no, here's music again." I could bop a little bit and then just keep going. So,
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised because I did hear that last year out on the road it really wasn't well supported. But when I got out there, I was like, oh, here's a DJ. There's a DJ. There's a local on the corner supporting us. There's this, there's that. So I was very pleasantly surprised. I agree. It's nice to be able to have that next thing to look forward to because you could hear the DJs ahead of time. It did
yeah.
span. And so it's like, okay, now I'm running to the next big thing. Here we go. Let's go. And then it's the next one. And it really does help keep you going, especially when you're going up and down those hills that we did have to do.
Well, and it's funny because we're not going through a really pretty area of Anaheim. Even it's very industrial. Well, that's easy to close the roads on a Sunday, through the industrial part for the 10 or the half marathon. And one of the uh, building supply companies had a sign out that you achieve what you believe, and it was really neat. I don't know if it was meant for us or if it's just out there all the time. It didn't matter. It felt like it was for us.
Exactly. And I did read in some of the Facebook groups, a local did see that they had changed that sign in the days leading up to the race. So I think it was geared towards us, which I actually think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. And it that was between mile 11 and 12, and at that point it was nice to have that encouragement just coming from, in essence, somewhat coming from above, because it was a big sign up above. And so it was just kind of a nice, for me, it was like, okay, yep, I believe this and I'm going to just keep going.
Yeah, that's great. So you started Run Disney because of some shoes. Do you still have those shoes?
I do still have those shoes. So they were the red Minnie Mouse. The next year they came out with the pink Minnie Mouse. And I got those in Disneyland when I did my first Disneyland race. And so I have both of those pairs still. And then over the years they did a few others. They did Haunted Mansion, they did Toy Story and different things. And then shoes were gone for many years. And so everybody was excited when Brooks came out with, whether it's the ones you run in or not, but they've come out with theirs, and it's just been fun to see what they have and something different. And of course, I have those now too.
Of course, you have to add to the collection. And I'm sure your husband is like, oh, well, now we get more races. Now we got more shoes. What did I get us into when I said this?
And I will be the first one to admit I'm very fortunate. I do have a husband who supports my hobby, my habit, whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, he also knows not only does it bring me joy, but it has by far made me healthier. I've had my own health battles over the years, and Run Disney has helped keep me focused on something, a reason to exercise, a reason to go out. I do run. I live outside of Chicago, so I run year round, whether it's cold or it's hot, and it makes a difference for me.
That's great. So come for the shoes, stay for the health journey.
Yep.
And the ability and excuse to just go enjoy Disney.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, to me that's part of it at this point. We as a family enjoy Disney. We are annual pass holders for Disney World, and so we'll almost always tack a day or two on at the end so that I can go in and enjoy and not have to think about, oh wait, I have to be up tomorrow morning at 2:30 in the morning or whatever to catch a bus. Which is one of the things we always like about Disneyland is you're not catching a bus, and so your destiny to the start line is your own. It's not based on what it's going to take to catch a bus.
Exactly. That actually made me a little bit nervous. Now that I've done it though with Disneyland, as this was my first Disneyland, I knew the Disney World thing, even as a spectator, because I started doing it as a spectator first. I knew you just go to the bus, you get on the bus, they hopefully don't get lost, and they drop you off where you need to be dropped off. But at Disneyland, I was like, I know in the morning I'm going to look one direction. And if it's sunny out, I'm going to know which way I'm going. But at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, I don't know. So I luckily came down the elevator, stepped off the elevator, and there were 5 other Run Disney runners. And I just walked with them, and I trusted that as more and more people piled on into the group, somebody knew where they were going, and they did. So that was wonderful. But it is your own destiny. You don't have to worry about catching the bus. You don't have to worry about the bus getting lost, but you do have to make sure you don't get lost.
Right. So yeah, I just, I always say Disneyland it's its own beast. It's just such a different. If somebody were to ask me, I can only do one race, what should I do? I would tell them the 5K at Disneyland.
That's good advice. 5K at Disneyland. Yep.
Or the 10K. And part of the reason I would say the 10K, I've done, this is the first time I've not done the 10K, is because you are only on the roads for a little bit. You're only on the road for about 2 miles out of 6. So that's, when you think about it, that's really not that much road time.
Yeah, it was nice to be in the parks for the amount of time that we were for the 10K. That was pretty cool. That it was the majority of the time Disney property.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so started in 2013, first Disneyland 2016. What you mentioned training, following other training plans before. What started change? I know you had a big change this year with how some races go. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
So I did Wine and Dine in the fall, and I had trained with a coach who was definitely about distance and speed. And when I say speed, it wasn't that she was training me to be fast. She was training me to she wanted speed, but she wasn't giving me the tools. And after a while, that frustrated me because part of the reason I went to her is because she was, fast. But what I realized was she was training the really fast runners, not the average runner that I would say most runDisney runners are, which was fine. I got through her training. I had a really rough winter training. I was supposed to have done Princess. I actually got down there, got my bib, everything, and we ended up flying home because I was sick. There was no way around it. I was sick, and I got up Friday morning and said, "Yep, I'm not running." And it was the best choice I could have made for myself and my own health. Fast forward, I was doing Springtime Surprise. Now in my mind, I'm going, "Oh no, how am I going to get my coast to coast?" Because I am not signed up for Wine and Dine, and coast to coast is a calendar year. I didn't do marathon weekend. Now I've not done Princess. I knew I had to do the 10 miler. Well, I was sick enough that my training was non-existent to speak of between Princess and Springtime. And I didn't have a great up to Princess time training either, because I was struggling with some of my own health journey and battles and things going on at that point. And it was just a rough winter. And that's why I don't like Princess is not one of my favorites, because I have to train in such cold weather. So I came to Allie, started with Allie's program about 2 weeks before. And Allie just told me, just walk fast. And I've always walked, I would say, between an 18 and 20-minute mile. And I'm like, I can walk faster than that. And I know this, but I haven't trained to do it. So the 2 or 3 weeks beforehand that I was working with Allie, I started walking faster. And as we came up to it, I just knew I just have to go out and do 10 miles. And I'm walking the whole thing, because I think the longest I had gone between Princess and Springtime Surprise was probably maybe 3.5 miles, but that was it in a single exercise block. Not advisable to anybody, but that's what I had. That's all I could do, because I just could not run for so long after being sick after Princess. So then fast forward, I started in her stronger, faster, finisher program. I did the 3-month one first, and then I jumped into the dopey one, knowing I was doing dopey. And the one thing I found real fast was I liked how what feels like slow build of distance. So my first early runs were 2 miles or less. And we were adding 10%, a true 10%, not 1 mile or 2 miles. We were adding 0.6, or 0.6 would have been on a 6-mile run. So think about it. If I was doing a 2-mile run, the next week I was only doing 2.2. And so it was just a fun gradual for me, and it helped me bring back some of the joy to running, because I think I didn't feel like I was chasing my feet all the time and trying to, oh my gosh, I've got another 8-mile run, I've got this, I've got that. And I think that's part of what had happened to me in the winter, was I just kept going back to, oh my gosh, I got another long run, where we did this slow build. Now, through the week, I wasn't doing massively long runs, but we were working on speed. Those speed workouts, whether it was the 30, 20, 10s, the hills, it didn't get a lot of progression runs in just because of the way my training fell more than anything. Or the tempo runs massively made a difference, if nothing else, in my own confidence in my own ability. And I think there's something to be said for running fast and realizing you can run fast, and walk fast. So I would go out on my Saturday morning runs, which is when I do my long runs. And I would start with a 10-minute warm up, or 3/4 of a mile is actually what I started doing just because it worked for me. Then doing my distance and then doing my cool down. I would walk fast in my warm up because I have to get my heart rate up. There's that piece of it. Well, it kept me practicing walking fast. I am an interval runner. I do 30-30 for the most part. But I think between walking faster and the speed workouts, it made a huge, huge difference in how I felt showing up to that start line Sunday morning. A year ago, when we were in Disneyland for the Halloween half marathon, I wasn't 100% sure I would finish ahead of the balloon ladies. And I will be honest, I didn't look, but I think I would venture to guess there were less than 100 people behind me that finished. I was almost at 4 hours, and I know it's a 16-minute cutoff, which puts you at 3.5 hours, but I was in corral B to start with, so that gives me really an extra half hour when it's all said and done. So I was able to just go out. So I this time I went out and was like, I'm not even worried where I'm going to be because I know my training was solid. I just felt like between the speed workouts, the walking, I had more under my feet and in my body that I could do. And sure enough, I was just under a half hour or 45 minutes faster than I had been a year ago.
Say that again.
I was 45 minutes faster than I was a year ago. And I know it had to do with the way I trained, because it's not like we went out and did more miles or anything else. Actually, I bet if I looked, I bet I did less miles than I did a year ago going into it. It wasn't that I didn't work with a coach. I did. A coach who has Boston qualifiers and all the, I mean, good coach. There is nothing wrong with her as a coach. It was just different. And everybody needs to find what fits. And that's the one thing I will say about Allie's program is the fact that it's a good fit in the fact that she understands that we are not all going to be 10-minute mile runners, 12-minute mile runners. I would venture to guess there are more of us that are in those 16s than in the 10s and 12s that are in her group. I ended up my average was 14:57, 14:59, something like that. I was under 15s. I was pleased. I still think I have more to give. And it's funny because I have thought about trying to do wine and dine just because I'm like, I think I've got more in me. But I've got a couple other thoughts that I might try to do to see what I can do, because I do want to see if I can go faster.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to, obviously we work together. If anybody hasn't picked up on that in this podcast episode yet, Amanda is in Stronger, Faster, Finisher with me. And so we have spoken earlier this week, and we realized that you ran a 3:15 for your half marathon, but you went further than the half marathon distance just by the way your feet fell on the course. What was it? 3.4 or 13.4 miles?
Yeah, or closer to 3.5 actually. Yeah, and so my watch actually had me at a 14:33, which is my goal was 14:30. So I was really pleased with the 14:33 because I'm like, okay, and I'm gonna, in my mind, that's what I did. That is not the official time if you go and look at Disney, but that's okay. That's part of any race. You have to go the shortest distance to be at that perfect. And so, but with that being said, I know that it's in me, and the next goal will happen.
Absolutely. It is definitely in you. And you went from a year ago finishing in 4 hours, but going into it, working with a coach, not knowing if you would finish, to being ill and pulling yourself from Princess, going into Springtime Surprise Challenge, deciding I can't do the 10K, gonna pull myself from that to make it so that I can give my best effort on the 10 miler. But going into that one as well, having not trained, finishing. Do you know what your pace was for that or your finish time for that 10 miler?
I want to say it was in this like right at 17-minute miles. Because my kids who started behind me, I kept waiting for them to catch me. Because I was walking, they were running, and they never caught me. But they stopped for more pictures and stuff than I did. Um, but I know I was like at 17-minute miles because I wanted to make sure I finished because I wanted the coast to coast. That was the whole reason. Otherwise, I probably would have done the 10K because in my mind it would have been an easier run. Um, but I was like, nope, I need that 10 miler so that I can get my coast to coast. And I was successful. And I was, I would say out of all my coast to coast medals, this one will probably mean the most because I fought for this one because of that springtime surprise in which I wasn't prepared. Um, and then just working so hard this summer, and anybody, I mean, I think it's been across the country, we've just hit heat after heat, and so I've had some hot runs, and I'll get up early and run, but it's been hot by the time I'm done. And but I just kept at it, and there were days I had to walk the end of a run. um and that's just what I did. And so even though my long 10-mile run, it I didn't run at the end. I would say that was one of my rougher runs. Um and I think sometimes I get in my own mental way. And we've had that conversation too, where it happens. You've got to have bad runs, as Allie would say, three or third, a third, a third. Um and that was one of them. And it was funny, I was talking to somebody and I said, I'd rather it was that one than the race.
Get it out of the way now before race day. And then you had a killer race day.
I did have a killer race day, and I I have changed things in my own life to make things work better. Um, I would say this is the first time I've really looked at and focused on carb loading. And that was thanks to Allie, like really making sure we're thinking about it ahead of time, not just on the spot. It's not that I didn't think about it, it's just that I didn't plan for it, where this time I did more planning for it. I think that helped me. Obviously the training helped, but and then the fueling, which I had already started learning how to fuel, so that wasn't as big of a deal to me. But it is, if you don't practice fueling, it doesn't work as well because you don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. And it was funny because I've been wanting to try nerd clusters on a run, and I haven't. And somebody handed them to me, and I pocketed them, and I'm like, I will try them. I have a couple of short runs coming up, and I will try them on that because I was like, oh, that's an easy way to try them.
Very easy way to try them. So, how early in your training did you start practicing working on your fueling?
I would say about 45 minutes. So the regular through the week runs are 45 minutes. And so anything over that, so which would have been my longer runs, I would practice fueling. And when I talk about practicing fueling, it also means what am I eating before I hit the road? Because that is part of that fueling. Because as we know, it takes 30 minutes for those carbs to hit our body in a useful way. And so if I go out with nothing in my stomach, of course, and then plan on eating after I start, I've just run, 30 minutes or an hour with nothing.
So
So,
you started fueling when your long runs started being 45 minutes or longer.
yes,
So that's if you're running, let's just say, for conversation's sake, if you're running a 15-minute per mile, you're starting at a 3 mile to 4 mile run.
exactly.
Had you done that before?
I don't know. No, I would typically would have started at about 6 miles because I know that for a lot of times that for me would be 90 minutes or so. Um, but I decided to go with it early to make sure that what I was taking in was working for me. And I did make some changes from what I've done in the past on what I was eating beforehand and during a run.
Had your coach before talked much about fueling during runs and races?
Yes and no. And I say that because, yeah, oh, you need to make sure you're getting enough. I knew the numbers, but there wasn't the suggestions. And that is one of the things that I've really appreciated about the Stronger, Faster Finisher is getting those suggestions and getting advice from other runners who are like, oh, I really like this. And I like this flavor of it because exact bars is one of them that one of the gals had recommended. And she's like, I like this flavor. Now, I don't like the same flavor she does, but that's okay. I tried it, tried some other flavors, and was able to make that work for me. But it is a great way to kind of like, oh, I'm going to try that and think about it in that realm. And I've got other stuff I want to try. And as we kind of ramp me back up into the dopey higher mileage training, I've got a few shorter runs and I will try some new stuff in that so that I can lock in my mind. I want to be locked in by no later than, like the first or second week in October.
That's great. Yeah, I've even learned from the group. I didn't use Scratch before the community that we've built, and runners were saying, "Oh, I really like Scratch." Actually, I think you were the one that said, "I really like Scratch because it's not too sweet." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting because sometimes the liquid IV for me feels too sweet." So I got Scratch and I do strawberry lemonade flavor of liquid IV when I go for a run. Scratch happened to have strawberry lemonade flavor as well. Now I actually do half and half. So I do half of a thing of Scratch and half of a liquid IV, put them together, and it's a nice balance between enough of the carbs, but not the overwhelming sweetness that sometimes liquid IV tastes like to me.
Yeah, and I think all of us have that. Somebody called it palate fatigue, in which we're tired of. And I have run with pretzels and things like that to actually help with that because sometimes you just need something different. The only problem with pretzels for me is I always get them all mushed up. And so then I end up with crumbs.
Then you're just eating crumbs with salt on it.
Yeah, but it works. And I'm not somebody who wants to take a salt pill or anything, the salt tabs or anything like that, unless I absolutely have to. I will say I had them out on the run with me. I did not need them. And I typically base that based on how my hands feel. If my hands start swelling, I know I need more salt.
I love that awareness because a lot of people don't recognize that, oh, if my hands are swelling, I actually need more salt. A lot of runners will think, oh, I need more water. But no, you do need the sodium in that aspect. So, love that awareness.
Yeah.
And I have a question going back. You mentioned that uh, you worked with the previous coach who was all about speed and getting faster. But then you said something about how this summer you felt like you got faster. Was there a difference in was it more of a like a mental change because you had said like getting more confident was something that happened for you, or was it an actual workout difference?
It's a workout difference by far for me, because what was happening was I was doing, maybe in a week or every other week even, 10 minutes of strides, which is, for those who don't know what strides are, they're just very fast for like 15 seconds, and then you walk for a minute or a minute and a half, go very fast for 15 seconds, walk for a minute, minute and a half. There was no focus. Those were sprints, they were all out. That's not how I'm going to run a race. So the programming that you gave me I was able to see differences. The 30-20-10s are a good example of that. The 30s, you're going fast. The 20, you're going a little faster. And then the 10, you're going all out. That 10 would be equal to a stride for me, but I'm also getting those other intervals. And I think because we're building those things like that, or I did more tempo runs. Even I think I told you, even the hills were easier because I had done hill training. I had done some hill training before, but not enough. And I know it's funny because everybody thinks so many places are flat, but you forget about things like overpasses and stuff like that. And even in the parks, Epcot is a good example. Epcot is not flat. Epcot is up and down. And so if you have done everything flat, your legs are going to get tireder going up and downhill. And we joke that at Disney World, the big thing is the overpasses and going around those curves. And so I know I will be better prepared for Dopey this year because I will have run my hill enough times to have that set and go. So to answer your question, it was a difference in training and what I was focusing on. So the through the week easy runs, although there was a speed element to an easy run, it it was a building process. And so yes, it gave me confidence, but it also gave me the speed that I needed, and knowing I could do it. So
Yeah, those 30-20-10s, for anybody who doesn't know, it's 30 seconds of, just like Amanda said, a fast pace. It's a pace. 20 is 20 seconds of a faster pace, and 10 is 10 seconds of the fastest pace. And I like to do it that way because the majority of the runners for Run Disney, they're doing intervals. So, and a common one is 30-30. So if you want to get faster, but you can't run for a whole minute at a time, 2 whole minutes at a time, 5 minutes at a time, you can split this up and use your 30 as your walking interval. And then you go faster during 20 and you go fastest during 10. And it's split up just like a 30-30 interval to mimic what you're going to do on race day. And then you get to see how that translates for your walking pace and for your running pace, which Amanda was saying she noticed right away.
yeah, and they've both gotten faster, not just one. They both have gotten faster. And it's funny because I did sprint the end of the race, and it felt good to sprint the end of the race, to know that I had it in me to sprint the end of the race. And yeah, I was tired when I was done. I was probably more tired than I have been in a long time for a race, but it was a great tired, with that being said.
after 13.4 miles, because we've already established that you went more, you had enough energy to sprint the finish line and get your finish line photo of you sprinting
Yeah.
at your half marathon.
Yeah. And it was fun. And I did go into the parks that night. Now, was I tired? Oh, absolutely. I was ready for bed, but I was there with family and okay, it's the last night. I'm going to suck it up and just do it. But when the show was done, I was ready to go to bed. I was, and it was funny because we were like, oh yeah, we'll pack some before we go to bed because we were leaving the next morning. And yeah, no, that didn't happen. I was tired. And it wasn't that my legs were as tired as I was just physically tired.
Yeah, because did you get a nap in there after
I
your
didn't.
race? No nap.
No
Straight to brunch.
Straight to brunch in which there may have been some liquid vibrations happening.
Some celebratory drinks.
And it was just I did do, I did stretch some, and then I also did some massage. So I have the squeezy boots that you put on your legs. I did that. I did not get an Epsom salt bath in. Their bathtub was not that cool, where I was staying. But it was funny because I came home and what did I do? I took an Epsom salt bath because I needed it, to be honest. But it, I know that was part of it too. Was the recovery is important, and I've had to really hone in this week on the fact that I am in recovery and it is okay to just walk and not run this week.
Do you feel like you could run this week if you didn't have the discipline to not run?
Tuesday when I went out and walked, I would have said no, I could not run. Tomorrow is a cross training day. Yes, I could probably run if I wanted to, but I won't because I want to be fully recovered so that I can go into the end of dopey training with my body ready to go again. And I know how important that is because the mileage is just going up from here.
It is. And you've done dopey in the past, so you know what is coming.
Yes. But I'm excited by this program that you have us on, in the fact I'm going to do more 4-day runs where I'm doing a little bit on the first day, a little bit more, then double it the next day, double it the next day, double it the next day. I actually think in the long run, that'll do me better than just doing 2 simulation weekends. I believe that will help my body be prepared for being able to get through the marathon, because I do have some dark memories of the first dopey. I finished well, I finished strong when it was all said and done, but I had some time in the middle in which I would call, those the black thoughts. I know my daughter-in-law passed me. We both did dopey the first time together, and she passed me. And when she got to my family, she's like, I don't think Amanda's doing well. And of course, my family didn't say anything until after I was done. And then I don't know, something happened about mile 13. I decided I could run again. Who would have guessed, right? And that's why I say I had some dark miles, but then I went, no, let's just get back to what we know. I went back to my intervals, what I know, and I did it. And I think I know I've done this over the years. Where I've had this happen to me before in races. And if you can figure out how to turn yourself around, that will make a difference. And I need to get better about doing that when I'm out on the road by myself and it's not a race. So those days in which all of a sudden I decide I'm just walking this, and then maybe pick up at the end and run, even if it's just the last half mile and it's in the intervals. Because we do need to figure out how to be able to get ourselves out of those hard places.
Yeah. Because no matter what your distance is, it it could be hard. You never know what's going to happen mentally or climate wise, temperature, uh potholes, just anything can happen. And having that mindset switch where you can turn it back in case you get into some of those dark moments, because it can happen to anybody.
Right.
And it's great that you have such a supportive family who do know what to say, when to say it, to not say anything in the middle of it, but to wait until later, but to be there and supporting you.
Well, and it was funny because I eventually caught back up to my daughter-in-law, and now she's the one struggling. And I ended up helping her finish, and it was just kind of a fun back and forth. This time my son will be doing it for the first time. It'll be his first marathon, his first dopey. And so I'm kind of excited. I will start in front of them. They run faster than I do. They're a lot younger than I am. It's okay. And so they'll catch up to me. The nice thing is if they catch up to me and there's photos, they'll let me know what photos they're at, and I'll just hop in line, do my photo with them, and then just keep going because it all works.
It's a fun family event that you started all because of shoes.
All because of shoes. And now we live a lot of Disney, to be honest here. So, yeah.
That's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun that you can do that with your family. You guys can support each other, kind of play leapfrog on the course out there, and know that pace doesn't matter. You all can have a good time no matter where you're starting in the corrals and no matter how fast you're getting through the course.
Well, and we're kind of excited. We're actually are planning a couple of the simulation weekends to do them together. She's following a completely different plan. Actually, I think she's designed hers, and her husband's on her own, and that's fine. But we have decided we're going to do a couple of simulation weekends together, mainly for those long runs, because we know how long it gets out there.
Yes. Now, when you did this before, what was the longest you trained to for the marathon to do dopey?
I believe I went to 20. I may have I'm almost wondered if I only went to 18. 20 or 18. I cannot remember for sure. I would have to look. But when I did my first marathon, which would have been 2018, I went up to 22. And that was a case of me talking the coach into letting me go up to 22. And it was yet a different coach. And that's why I think then I went from that marathon to, I did Chicago Marathon. I think I did 20. So that's why I think dopey, I only did 18. And I think you have a scheduled up to 20, which I actually, in my mind, I'm like, that's okay, because I will probably walk at the beginning and at the end, and it won't be a 20-mile run. It will be a 20-mile distance.
Yes. Yes. Because you don't have to run the whole thing and exhaust yourself. Build longevity, build time on your feet, and make it so that you get your body used to being on your feet for that amount of time, especially as a run walker.
Yeah. I'm almost 58 years old. I will be 58 before dopey. And I don't want dopey to be my last race. I don't want to be broke when I'm done. I want to be able to go have fun. And to do that, I know I have to train wisely, which was part of the reason your program intrigued me. Even though I wasn't hurt coming into it, I don't have a whole lot of injury history, but I don't want to have injury history. And your strength training program has made a huge difference also, because I can feel a difference in my own body in places also. I definitely have some definition in my arms that I didn't have, which I don't know, as a 58-year-old woman, there's some pride to that.
That's awesome. Tell me more about the strength training because we had not planned to talk about that. But tell me about it.
Well, I have done a lot of strength training over the years. I've often worked with personal trainers, which if anybody's ever worked with a personal trainer, you know, I don't know, unless I live in Chicago and or outside of Chicago, but I know it's expensive, but it's not uncommon for it to be $75 to $125 an hour. And I always say I know enough that I'm dangerous. And so by coming into your program in which you helped me put together a program, so there are things that I don't like to do. I do not like to do lunges. And then all of a sudden lunges were hurting my knees because we did do them during the first round. And I didn't say I didn't like them, but I did them because that's what we programmed. But they were bothering my knees. So we pulled them out for the second round because why do something that's bothering me? But we put other stuff in to make me stronger. And so it works within what we're doing. But I am lifting heavy. I lift heavier than Allie does, but it's by choice. And I actually enjoy it. I've come to learn new things and how to do them. I've gone out and had to do, Allie shows me how to do it, but then I do the research to see, okay, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. What, are there other little things I need to worry about? But that's me. And as Allie knows, I like my data.
As do I.
And so I keep track of all of it. I can tell you exactly how much I lifted and how many reps I did. But that's the other thing. I am doing a whole body workout. Yes, it takes me an hour and 10 minutes. It kind of depends. But I'm not doing a lot of reps, but I'm getting the whole body and really a lot of exercises. And I'm fortunate. I do have the time in the day that I can dedicate to it most days. And when I don't, I'll do upper body or I'll do the lower body piece. It just kind of depends. But it just has become, I've said for a long time now, running is just what I do. When people are like, I can't believe you're out there and it's, 20 degrees out or whatever. And I'm like, that's just what I do because you schedule it for me. I'm probably going to go run it. That's how I've gotten now with the weight training also. It's just what I do because I think that that's an important piece. And as I get older, I know I need that also. So, and I know I do see a kidney specialist, and it's the first time I've seen the kidney specialist where they haven't gone, oh, your blood pressure is still up or anything like that, or are you exercising enough? Instead, it's like, you must be doing the right things because we can tell. And to me, that's what's most important because that's what's going to keep me healthy down the road.
Wow. And you are doing this to keep healthy. And now your doctors are seeing it too.
Yep.
You're seeing the running times change. You're seeing the definition in your muscles change. And your doctors are seeing the numbers change.
Yeah. Because it all works together. It's all part of the process, really. And that would be the one thing I would say. It's about the process. And you had to tell me when we went into taper. First off, it's the first time I've ever done a 3-week taper. I really liked it by the time I was done. In the middle of it, I hated it. And I think because you took my running, I was running, but not as much. And so to me, it was like, but by time we got to Disneyland, I could not wait to run. I wanted to run. And I don't know that I've always felt that way when I've showed up I know I haven't always felt that way when I've showed up to a start line. And so I think there's something to be said for a taper that really makes you step back and go, oh, yes. And my body was ready then, as was my brain.
As was your brain. And it translated to a 3:15. Your A goal was a 3:10. So we gave it an A minus goal for achievement. And you had told me you can't remember the last time you ran a half marathon in less than 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah, I would venture to guess it would have been well before COVID. Um, my gut would be maybe 2019, because I did Chicago Marathon in 2018, and I know I had a really good half the spring after that. Or no, it was in between. So it would have been spring of 2018. I had a really good half in between the two marathons, actually. Um, and then it was just like it wasn't, I don't think it was that I got slower as much as I got complacent with speed. And I would just go out and go a steady speed, where by doing the speed work, I was teaching myself again to be fast on my feet, and not just this complacency of always being at the same pace. Because I think what happened was, I got to a 14-minute mile, because I was in the high 12s when I first started, and then I got into the 14s, and then I got into the 15s, and I would be doing that in my training, and I wasn't seeing how to get faster.
And would you do the same pace no matter what kind of run it was?
Yes, and it was funny because everybody always say, "Well, you get 75% or more need to be easy pace." Well, they were. Everything was easy. Everything was easy pace. There was, other than maybe a 10-minute challenge of strides, everything was easy. And so I wasn't, or once in a while, I would, I joke because it was like once in a while somebody might throw in a speed workout at me, and I would do it, but you can't do one in a month and expect to see a new result in 2 months or 3 months. But we know for a fact, from what we saw from, well, I'll say the 1st of March until the 1st of September, I am by far a different runner. Because I would venture to, well, I know for a fact that a lot of my long runs going into princess training, I was in the 17 and 18-minute mile runs. I was still running, and that's where I was. So to me, to flip it around and now be in the 14s is huge. And that doesn't mean that's what my easy runs are when I go out, because they're not. They're typically actually in the high 15s. Again, I had to trust the process.
Trusting the process for sure. And with those speed workouts before, when you were doing those strides, was there a pace that you were supposed to have, or did you have guidance on what that pace should be, or was it just run?
It was just run what you could, walk. Like I said, it was walk like 90 seconds or something in between. And I mean, and I remember the data, and a lot of times I would be in the 10-minute pace or 9-minute pace for 15 seconds. But again, once a week, and that was it, wasn't making it. And there was nothing to show me how to get a 10-minute pace to translate into a 14-minute pace. Where I think with what we're doing with the tempo runs, the progression runs, and by far right now, I would say my favorite, the 30-20-10s, I can see that progression. I understand that sprint at the end, but I also know that I need those 10s and 11s in the middle, which I can do to get to a 14-minute pace.
And one thing that may be different for you, and I'll ask you if it's different, but other runners have told me the pace testing and the pacing delineation, I'll call it. Is that accurate that that's new to you?
Oh, by far new. And I I've come to really appreciate that difference and understanding that um this is what my walk pace should be when I'm walking, because I know I can do that pace for this amount of time. This is what my run pace should be because I can do that pace for this amount of time. Um, and so I appreciate the fact that we have figured that out. And I hate the pace testing, to be honest. I hate it. But I like the results. I like the data. And even though I know when I was done with the pace testing this last time, I said, I'm not sure I can sprint that fast that often. But progressively, I have been in those low nines, so I can do it. But I had to kind of build myself up to it. And I'm probably due for pace testing again.
And you might be. But the good news is you don't necessarily have to do it again for a while. You by all means can. I typically program it out so it's every 6 weeks because you need to go at least 6 weeks
Yeah.
of doing twice a week speed workouts, not once a month and then hoping that something will change. You need to go at least those 6 weeks to really see a change. However, you don't have to. If you want to wait until 8, 10, 12, or see what happens on race day, you by all means can. Things are never mandatory. I
They're
do
never cut and
highly,
dry. Yeah.
right. I can't force you to do it. I won't force you to do it. But this is the guidance. Here's what I know has worked for me personally and my clients in the past. Because if I haven't personally tried it, I am not programming it out. I made sure 30, 20, 10, I have done those workouts. I know how it should feel. I know what is expected. Progression runs, I have done it. Those are my favorite kind of speed workout. Tempo run, I have done it. Hill workouts, I have done it. And here's the guidance on how to do these paces to make it so that you can be faster. And then give yourself the easy run 75, 80% of the time so that you have the energy to go out there and do these speed workouts.
And I feel like my endurance has gotten better, partially because of the speed. And the other, I mean, we haven't talked about cross training. That's the other piece that you have programmed in for us, which I love the cross training also in the fact that you pretty much tell us we can do anything that's going to raise our heart rate, whether it's biking or rowing. But I've been doing, so I typically, not every week, but like every other, I have 2 cross training days. One of those I have just dedicated to walking and walking fast because I know that's how I'm going to get faster. And then the other one, I try to do something else because I know it's good for me to do something besides just on my feet. And so that for me is typically on a bike.
Perfect. Yeah, I love the paced walking as fast as you can as a cross training, because then you can see, okay, I can walk and I can walk this pace. So, God forbid something happens on race day and I can't run it. Well, now I know I can maintain a 16-minute per mile at least.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm coming back from having pushed a hard half. I know the day I came back, the first day I came back, I literally, when I got off the plane, I'm like, I got to go for a walk because I knew I needed to stretch my legs. And I went out for a very, very slow walk. And then the next day I went out for a walk and it wasn't real fast, but it was meant to be a 45-minute, just get out there and do it. And then the next day I was shocked at how fast I went. I mean, without, my heart rate wasn't up. Now it helps that it's gotten cooler here. But it just naturally happened.
And that's a really good point, mentioning how cool it has gotten where you are. Race day, half marathon race day, it was toasty, and you got those numbers.
Exactly. And it was toasty last year also. So it wasn't, it was definitely cooler this year than it had been the year before, but it didn't matter. It was that's where we were at. And so I think there's something um that's part of the reason I am fortunate enough I live in an area where I can train outside year round for the most part. I know we've got some friends who live in Florida and stuff like that. There is no. I know, Allie, you really struggle even in Las Vegas to get out early enough to not get such high heat. Um, and I had to do the same thing this summer. But with that being said, the more I do it, the easier it gets down the road.
Yes. Yeah. In July and August for me here, 6 a.m. it's already 90 or 95 degrees here in Vegas. So there is no outside in Vegas in July and August. I made a reel a couple of weeks ago and I was like, "Here, I'm going to do a tutorial on how you do it." You don't. You go on the treadmill in the air conditioning. And that just happens to be what had to happen. But your training in warmer heats, no matter what that means for you or you, the listener, that's going to translate to even faster times when it's cooler.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I was noticing with the walking even. And it was funny because I got back and normally the top of my shirt is wet from sweat. Nope. And I was like, and I looked and I'm like, I was under 16-minute miles. Ooh, that was pretty good for pure walking. There was not a lick of running in that.
Wow.
So yeah.
All around you're seeing progress.
Yeah.
How exciting. I
It
can't wait.
Yeah, it just gives me the excitement of the training. I want to train it. I want to do it because I want to see where it's going to take me in the end. And I always hate to wish away the time we've got right now, but with that being said, I cannot wait to see what Dopey brings. Which is why, I mean, the joke has been I've been kind of like out there kind of looking for a bib for wine and dine. My husband said, you don't have to stay on property because I was struggling to find a room on property. And I'm like, you don't want to say that.
Don't give me more excuse to just go find a bib.
So, yeah, we'll see.
Gosh. I mean, and you still have so much time. We have the rest of September, all of October, all of November, all of December before Dopey, that first complete weekend in.
January.
Oh, no, I guess this is technically the second, right? The second week.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
first must hit the first or second, or must hit
Yeah.
Saturday or Sunday. I mean, it is like, I want to say it's like the 6th and 7th or something like that, or is so we are really kind of in that second weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's exciting. And I am the first one to admit that like I said, I can't wait to see what else is out there, what I can do, what I can bring to the table for myself.
So
And
even after training for the past 6 months, because we talked about March 1st to September 1st, 6 months, and you still want to keep going.
yeah,
Not burnout, not unmotivated.
there is less burnout now than I've had in years. And I do think it was because you took me back to the basics in March. Back to the start, back to, nope, we're going here. And I think that did me good in the fact, it was base building. As you talk about base building, and that was definitely what we were doing. And that was the best thing for me in that moment. I think I've done a lot of training where I've gone from race to race and I'm always training. And so going back to base building was was probably the best thing I could have done.
When you first started those base building and you saw the mileage, you mentioned 2 miles was probably what you started at. It was probably less than that.
It was. Well, and I say 2 miles because with the warm up and cool down in there, it hit 2 miles.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
But yeah, no, we were, I want to say the first week was it 1 mile? I don't even know for sure what the number was, but
Yeah.
it was like maybe 1 mile. And it was just funny because then the next week it'd be 1.10. And my husband would go, "Why doesn't she go 1?" I said, "Because it's a true 10%." And, some of the numbers, and they do laugh at me here when I'm like, "Yeah, I have to run 3.49." And they're like, "Well, that's 3.5." And I'm like, "No, it's not. It's 3.49."
Allie says, no, it is not 3.5. Don't go that extra.
So, yeah, I laugh because I have tried to play the game in that I'm following those numbers. And that's been fun too. Like I said, I like numbers, I like the data, and so I've really tried to treat it as that.
When you first saw those low numbers, do you remember what your reaction was? Like before you did them, but you looked at the programming. Do you know what you thought?
I think I was a little surprised that we were starting so low, and I was surprised, but I was at that point because I had been so sick. I was like, this is probably going to be good for me to start here, but at the same time, I'm like, I can do more than this, but I'm glad I didn't do more than that because it would have been real easy. I could have run more and you would have never known. But
That's true.
that's not what I that's not how I'm one of those people that I think I said earlier, if you tell me to do it, that's what I'm going to do. And for the most part, that is how I treat my training. I typically will look a week or even 2 weeks out and be like, oh, I got to rearrange this or that so that I can get them all in because of schedule, because sometimes life gets lifey. But I tried to really like listen to the process, hone in on the process. This is, you said all along, faster, stronger, faster finisher. That's what I wanted. I was all about that faster. That was the biggest reason I started with you, was I wanted that faster finisher. And the
And
stronger
you got it.
I did. And I got stronger too. So,
And you got stronger. Look at you hitting all 3.
yep.
How exciting. I don't want to be the person that jumps ahead either, but I can't wait for January 12th when I'm watching that app and being like, Amanda, look at you go.
Yeah. And what a better place to run than Disney. And so it's a carrot. I always say I kind of chase the carrot a little bit. And I do because, like, I started, the carrot was the shoes. And then, people, well, why are you still running? Well, now it's the medal. Well, now it's the community. I mean, I can't wait to get down there with all of your faster finish, stronger members, stronger, faster finishers that are going to be there and meet everybody. I just, that excites me to be able to meet in person and see these people that we've now been training together virtually for it'll be almost 6 months.
Week after week for 6 months. And, I love the community aspect of it. So I'm so glad that you are enjoying it too. Do you notice or have an opinion on the fact that, or even know that no single person in the group has the exact same programming?
Only reason I know that is because you've told us that, and it's kind of interesting in that too, because sometimes there's places where we can see the similarities, but our mileage isn't necessarily the same. Um, I know I'm one of the ones, a lot of them do their long runs on Sunday. I do mine on Saturday. So it kind of changes how things fall, but it doesn't matter when it's all said and done. We're all going for that same goal, and it's to finish strong, finish standing, finish whatever your goal is. So it's not about, not everybody's looking for what I want. And I think that's kind of cool too. And I'll tell you that one of the things I've loved about the community is sometimes when somebody asks a question and I'm like, oh, that's a good question. Or it reminds me to ask a question about something, or whatever the case may be. But the learning and the exchange of information to me has been great too, in the fact that we all come from different places.
I love that. And yes, I will get DMs because Amanda, of course, as you know, everybody gets one-on-one coaching in the DMs, but then one-on-one, once we're in the call, you have a question, I answer, and then somebody else gives their thoughts, and then somebody else gives their thoughts on, we were talking about the fueling and the food, and people will have thoughts on where to stay and what time to wake up and everything like that. And there, some people would have concerns of, I don't I don't want to ask this question. I don't want to take up everybody else's time. And I encourage, ask all of the questions. Ask them 75 times if you have to, because if you need it repeated, maybe Amanda needs it repeated, or maybe it will trigger a question Amanda forgot to ask or forgot that she had.
That is so true. So I have, and I always feel bad when somebody says, I hate to take up the group's time on this. And it's like, no, no, no. I'm here for it. I'm here to, let's see what we can do. I'm going to laugh. There was conversation about underwear. Well, that's important. And not everybody has the same experience. So how do we figure it out? We figure it out as a community.
Yes. And especially the comment of, I don't want to take up everybody's time, or some people have messaged me and said, I don't want to make you stay on. My Tuesday is calls. It starts at 1:30 Pacific, or it doesn't start. The Stronger Faster Finisher call right now starts at 1:30 Pacific. My rest of the day is blocked off. So if we go 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. I can't say I'm going to be on past 8 p.m. Pacific. That's my bedtime. And Levi will tell me it's time to go to bed. But that's my day. I am here for it. I am in it. I think this past Tuesday we were on 2.5 hours.
And it was because people were asking questions, and they were viable questions. They were questions that needed answered. And I'll go back to, there were questions about balloon ladies for doping, not, or for the marathon or half marathon, whatever, not for the race that we just had in September, but for the race that's in January. Why? Because it's on somebody's mind. If we can set their mind at ease today, that's going to make training easier. And so to me, I think it's all important, and it's all needed when it's needed.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about them again probably next week.
Oh, I have no doubt that they'll come up again.
Yeah. Because how many times have we talked about, okay, what fuel should I be using on this long run? It's going to be an hour and a half long, and I don't like this type of food. I don't like goos and gels. My stomach can't tolerate this one. What can I try? I'm sick of this one. I have what did we call it? The fatigue with it. And I think every other week there's a question about that. And then every other week there's a question about stretching or foam rolling or
Yes.
I
Respect.
can't I can't run my long run this week. What do I do? And we work out how to manipulate the schedule because life gets lifey, and let's just switch up our deload week and go from there. And it's the same questions in a different way over and over again because that's what that person needs in the moment. And I am so glad everyone comes to the call and asks those questions 75 bajillion times.
Well, and somebody once told me that you have to hear things at least 3 times. And I don't know that I always need to hear everything 3 times, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of things I need to hear 3 times. And I know even when we went over the 30-20-10s, every time you talk about it, I pick up something and I'm like, oh yeah, I should do that with that. Or how, that kind of thing. And so you just don't know what you don't know until, you start hearing it and then you go, oh yeah, that's what she means by that. Or that's how that I should try that piece of it.
Absolutely. And you'll hear it a different way based on how active is your brain today? What else has happened in your day? Are you fully in it today? Yes or no? And you're going to hear the answer differently.
Yeah.
I love it. I love when I can go downstairs to Royal and say, "Oh, just finished up the call. 2.5 hours today." He's like, "Oh, great. How many people were on? How many stayed on the whole time?" Everybody.
Yeah. And I know, I talked to several people at Disneyland, and I was like, you can't go wrong with this community. And I truly believe it. And I know that it's made a difference for me. I mean, I couldn't wait for some of them to show up on the call because I want to see their faces. I want to know how they're doing. And I think that that's part of it also.
It's a really fun way to train, even when we're all across the country. We all happen to be in the United States, so we're all spread out across the country, and it's so fun to be able to hear what's going on, hear how it's going, and then when race day comes, say hi in real life for the first time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's just, and we're going to help each other out all the way through. And I know that that's part of it. And I think that's part of being in a community. One thing I learned a long time ago was that we have to build our own community and what we want it to look like. And if I could be in a community of Disney runners who love what they do, I'm all the happier.
It's a wonderful community to be part of. I'm so glad that I started joining it when I did because it has just it I think one of the best parts of it is you can be any pace, any size, and everybody is there with you. Nobody is saying you don't belong because you are running a 14.5 minute per mile. They're saying, oh my gosh, I can't wait until I'm doing a 14.5 minute mile.
Yeah. You dress up, not dress up, doesn't matter. Be
Doesn't
where
matter.
you're at when you show up to the start line. Do what works for you. Stay where you want to stay. Do what make it work for you because it is such a community. And it's funny because I think you even mentioned we were on the call, we were talking about sitting in the corral. And if you just sit in the corral and you're all like in your own head, you're in your own head. Now, when you take off, you're already in your own head. But if you sit in the corral and you talk to the people around you, it's actually fun to find out that the guy next to me, his son ran his first kids race. And, it's little things like that, and it was just fun to share.
It's so fun to share. And there's always just a little piece that you get to learn about somebody else, and it makes the whole conversation just keep going and keep going and keep going. And then before you know it, race starts. So you don't even need to worry that you got to the corral at 3:30 for a 5 o'clock race and have
Right.
to hang out for an hour and a half, because it's so much fun.
And that to me is important too, because it can be a long time by yourself if you're, and I do typically go to the start line by myself, but I'm okay with it.
Yes. But you're okay with it. Yes. Well, Amanda, 90 minutes later, thank you so much for coming on this podcast to share your story. Is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners with?
I think you just have to go back to believing. You got to find a program that's going to work for you. And if you haven't, you need to come out and try Allie.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I truly believe it, or I wouldn't say it.
Please take what you've learned in this episode and use it to adjust your strategy for your Run Disney race training. It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right things in the right balance so you can finish strong, not broken. And if you want personalized guidance specific to your race, your injury history, your running background, and your goals, that's exactly what we do inside Stronger, Faster, Finisher. You'll get step-by-step instructions and a proven system to help you train smarter from start to finish. Join the waitlist today to be the first to know when it opens next. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.